All the primaries are over, and there's no politics till November. But this morning's guest is here to sling some mud. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're in the conference room, the new office of the Myrtle Beach Herald at 4806 Northgate Boulevard in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on one of its columnists, Eddie Paul. Good morning, Eddie.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Okay, well.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. You're waking up finally. 7 a.m.'s a little early, I know,
Just
I
a
know.
little bit.
Great opportunity to get you in, and of course to focus on mud, puddle, real estate, the craziest name we've ever had of a column in the Herald, but one that has a lot of explanation behind it.
I put a lot of thought into it. The analogy I use to explain mud puddle real estate is what I call the swimming pool analogy.
Right.
A swimming pool, I mean, it looks beautiful, it's crystal clear, but if the pool guy's doing his job right, it's dead. There's no life there, which is the whole idea behind putting all the chemicals and everything. Where if you contrast that with a mud puddle, depending on how big it is, mud puddles are teeming with life.
Right.
And it's got bacteria and critters in it, and some of them are dangerous. And that's kind of how life is, and especially how real estate is. I mean, there's more to real estate than what you see on HGTV.
Right.
And I get into the stuff that they don't show you, because on HGTV, they solve all the problems and close the deal and remodel the house, and everybody's happy in 30 minutes.
Right.
And in real life, occasionally it goes like that, but not very often. Normally there's a lot of muddy stuff around there, and if people know about that, what can happen going in,
right,
then they're not surprised, and they don't get knocked off course, and they go ahead and work through it, and everybody's happier.
That's a great point, and probably a lot of the folks who've tuned in and seen your column on a weekly basis and are following it along are seeing a lot of things they've never thought about. Even agents probably seeing it, but particularly if potential users or folks that are potentially buying or selling their homes are seeing it, they're thinking about lots of things they may have never even contemplated.
And I'm getting good response. I was surprised. I did not intend to write for agents, but I'm getting quite a bit of response from agents.
Right.
And a lot of what they're telling me is stuff like, I'm glad you said that, because I can't say that when I'm sitting in front of a client.
Right.
So I can say things behind my facade of mud puddle real estate they really can't say, and it makes it a little bit easier for them. And it's a little fun being recognized on the street. Hey, you're that mud puddle guy. And of course, I try to keep some of this is really dry.
Right.
So I try to spice it up.
Sure.
And I've got my buddy Cousin Luther.
Oh yeah.
Anytime I need a bad example, I whip out Cousin Luther, or somebody needs to ask that silly question that nobody wants to ask. Cousin Luther asks the question. The hardest part with Cousin Luther was, since I'm from here and related to a lot of people, I had to think hard to come up with a cousin that I really didn't have.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say, is there a real Cousin Luther?
Cousin Luther is a figment of my imagination.
Yeah.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Whether it's somebody real or not, we'll stick with Cousin Luther. That is great. Well, Cousin Luther has been interspersed throughout, almost from the get-go. I don't know if there have been some columns where he or she has not been recognized yet, but Cousin Luther is throughout.
Well, Cousin Luther, if you get very high up the intelligence level, he's not appropriate. Right. So there's a few places where it's not appropriate to put Cousin Luther in, but for a lot of the stuff, especially the fun stuff, and I have fun using him.
He has been definitely a part of it. Well, you mentioned you've got a lot of cousins in the area, so I guess that answers my question of, are you originally from the area, Eddie?
I was born in the Veterans Hospital in Columbia, but aside from that, I've been here except for a tour in the Air Force for 4 years. There's parts of this county that I can't throw a rock without hitting a cousin. I tell people that's the reason I married a girl from West Virginia, to make sure I wasn't marrying a cousin. And my wife Cheryl is from Hamlin, West Virginia, famous for General Chuck Yeager. That's his hometown.
Yeah.
And she actually got to know him when she was a child.
Really?
And but she's director of ICU up at Grand Strand.
Great.
There a long
Boy,
time.
she's busy.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of her, and she keeps me straight, which is a full-time job in addition to her full-time job.
Yes.
And my son is a senior at Georgia Tech.
Congratulations.
Give
boy.
me another year, and I'll have a bouncing baby mechanical engineer.
Is he thinking about coming back to the area? Or has he learned to love the state of the Peach State?
He's not real crazy about Atlanta. He's not real crazy about big cities, but he loves Georgia Tech. He loves the school, and he's doing quite well. And I'm very proud of him. I'm glad he takes after his mama.
Aha, listen to you. Listen to you. Well, if folks have been reading your column on a regular basis, they know there's a lot more to you than meets the eye, if it's that. But surely, I'm sure they meet the eye and get a lot out of you anyway. But this has really been tremendous. How do you come up with your ideas for a column on a weekly basis, Eddie?
Sometimes I have to. It depends on. I try to be topical. Like right now with the market the way it is, there's a lot of short sales and that kind of stuff is in the news. Well, everybody's talking about short sales,
right.
But there's part of what I want to do with Mud Puddle Real Estate is advise people of what to look out for.
Right.
And with the market the way it is, there are some scams that are going on, and I try to cover those. And then when things come up and I see them, or agents will tell me, they'll tell me about situations where nobody had a clue what was going on.
Right.
I'll do the research, and then I'll put together a column that addresses that.
Yes.
And some of it is just, the column I did on agency. That is basic, but most people have no idea, and some agents don't fully understand this. So I did a column, and if you explain it correctly, and I use a lot of comedy in a lot of my stuff, because sometimes you can make a point better with a story in comedy than you can just blah, blah,
Get
blah,
it straight
blah,
out.
blah. Everybody, their head falls back. I think that's why Jesus taught in parables, because a story, you can put things in context.
Oh, yeah. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Was there something that gave you a bug to start writing early on, Eddie, or is this something you've been doing a long time, or is it very recent?
Well, I've always enjoyed writing. When I was a kid in the 60s, there were some characters around the Conway area that I got to meet, and they would tell these stories.
Right.
And some of them, I noticed that some people would really react positive to some stories, and other stories people would be like, just shake their head and walk away. And I kind of learned then that the ones that were shaking their head and walking away, they thought they were just trying to tell a lie.
Huh.
But the ones where people laughed and had a good time, they use exaggeration as a tool, but it was so over the top. There was no doubt that they were trying to be funny.
Right.
And so I've internalized that, and I even passed it on to my son, because he got in trouble one time. He tried to tell a joke in school, and they thought he was trying to put something over on him. And I explained to him, I said, son, if you're going to exaggerate, go whole hog over the top so far that there's no doubt that what you're trying to do.
Right.
Like, instead of saying that, this also will hurt you or burn your mouth, say, this also so hard when you put it in the refrigerator, the eggs will hatch. And so, from that, and picking up on that, and then when I got into school and started writing, well, I was not the most ambitious student, especially in English class, but I learned early that if I wrote a nice, neat story or something in creative writing, I could kind of slide through without doing all the homework and actually learning the grammar.
Yeah.
So that worked really well up until about the 9th grade. Then I got Mrs. Robinson.
Ooh, boy, this was in Conway.
Yes. I don't know what she saw in me, but that lady was bound and determined that I was going to pull anything over on her, and I was going to learn grammar, and I was going to be literate, not just a guy that could tell a funny story or twist a phrase.
Mrs. Robinson.
Mrs. Robinson, wonderful lady. She used creative writing as my reward. She would let me write stuff if I would do my other work. And at the time, I didn't realize what she was doing. And later, looking back, especially when I had a son, I was like, the old reverse psychology, and she was brilliant at it.
Right.
She was a very good teacher. And what's funny is it made such an impression on me that I'd been out of school probably 20 years and was working at Kingston Office Supplies in Conway, South Carolina. We were also at the Hallmark store.
Right.
And it was one of those Hallmark holidays. And she came in, was looking for a card.
Oh.
And I saw her, and I just was like, okay. So I walked up to her and introduced myself and asked her. She said she remembered me.
Yeah.
And I had no reason not to believe her, because she said, yeah, you were in that class. And I was like, okay, that's better than I can do. But I told her, I said, Miss Robinson, I want to thank you. And she said, what for? I said, it's because of you that I'm literate today.
Wow, that's a strong statement.
She was very gracious, and she thanked me. And that instance made an impression on me, and now I'm very quick to say thank you.
That's tremendous.
Because the little things, sometimes that turns into something big later on.
Right.
And, what I'm doing today, I think, started with her. Because being clever is all well and good, but if you can't communicate, it's worthless.
That's a great point. Being clever is all well and good, but if you can't communicate, it's worthless. That is a great point. I bet a lot of folks don't even think about that. I bet they don't even think about that. So that obviously, that ninth grade experience with Mrs. Robinson really opened the door. You've maintained this love of writing, though,
ever since
then.
And writing correctly.
Right.
So, I'll kind of push the envelopes with some things, but I'm still I want to be understood.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just, babbling in the wind if you, just making a noise.
Well, I think I saw that there was a time, even after you got out of the Air Force, you said you spent 4 years in the Air Force, and you began writing some commercials for your own establishment.
Yeah, I backed into running a restaurant, the Old Smokehouse Restaurant.
Right.
And nobody else wanted it. I was the bartender at the time, and I ended up cutting a deal where I leased it and ran it for 2 years, got it back to profitability, and sold it.
Right.
Sounds familiar. I know somebody else does stuff like that. But one Sunday was our big day, Sunday lunch after church. And one Sunday, somebody called me up and said, Eddie, are you closed? I said, no, not Sunday middle of the day.
Yeah.
He said, well, the radio station's saying you're closed.
No.
And at the time, WLAT, which is now The Wave.
Right.
But it was the only station in Conway, FM station. And we had our commercials on there, and they had messed up the ad copy.
Oh, boy.
So I called, and I fussed at Mike Green, and he pulled the spots.
Yeah.
But I got to thinking, I was like, well, I can write better commercials than what we've got anyway. Cause my commercials sound like everybody else's commercials. I said, people aren't even hearing this. So I started writing my own commercials and putting a little twist in them. And started getting good response. People started coming in. Our clientele increased. Plus, the clientele was coming in was like, I like that spot. When are you going to do another one?
Right.
So it got to be kind of fun. It was one of the enjoyable parts, because anybody that's run a restaurant knows it's hard work. But I enjoyed it, and it was a great education.
That is tremendous. Well, that's a great example and a segue into writing those spots, having been in the Air Force and having started at an early age, to even more opportunity. It was actually one of your pieces that I saw in an ad for your real estate office for a home there in Conway that was fascinating. I think you highlighted even selling someone else's house and them being very appreciative of the way you styled their home.
The thing that kicked me and gave me the impetus to ask you for a job writing was Rod Gregg. He's an author in Conway. He has a beautiful house, and I put together a brochure for his house.
Right.
And of course, I gave it to him so he could proof it and everything, because and I was a little bit shaky in the knees.
Oh,
He's this expert, because he literally wrote the history of Horry County.
Yeah,
literally,
sure.
Plus a bunch of other books. And funny thing is, he was one of my customers way back in the days of the Old Smokehouse.
No.
But he read what I'd done, and he gave me glowing accolades, and it just kind of floored me. I'm like, wow, this is like if you're a musician having Elvis's guitar player saying he likes your music. It's like, whoa. And I told my wife, and she said, well, you've been writing all your life. Why don't you do something with it?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the kick in the pants. And so doing a real estate deal with a fellow that owns a newspaper. And
Right. It was a great opportunity. We're sitting on a property we bought thanks to you. Thank you again, Eddie, for pushing that through, and the great work there at Century 21 Broadhurst, which we never mention in your column, since of course you're Eddie at mudpuddlerealestate.com when folks send emails to you, or Eddie at Read the Herald, but you've got your realtor pin on there. And thank you again for this tremendous. We wouldn't be sitting here this morning if it hadn't been for rendezvousing with you and one of your good-looking signs that was down here at the end of Northgate Boulevard, which we finally actually picked up recently. It had been there for quite a while. We've got that, I think, in a good location. But, you know, as you think through all the steps that you have to come up with a great column, laying out something, as I ask anyone who approaches about a column, can you lay out a theme for at least 52 weeks? Can you think through that far out? Because if readers fall in love with what you're writing, which I know folks have fallen in love with yours, much like all of our columnists, if they fall in love, they want to see it week after week after week. And are you having trouble coming up with new topic ideas, or are you getting folks sending you emails for things they want you to cover?
I'm getting emails, not all of which are positive. I've been called an idiot. Of course, you congratulated me when I got the "you're an idiot" email.
One of them, yeah, that's right, that's right.
But it just means I hit a nerve. But so far, it's gone pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing is that some of my topics, I've got 400 to 600 words.
Right.
And there's a lot of topics you cannot do justice to in that short period of time.
Right.
So I'll do a series. And it may take, like we're doing home inspections right now.
Just last week you wrapped that up. That's right. What's out in the newsstands now? Sure.
And that covered 3 weeks. And even at that, I kind of gave a short shrift, but I covered the highlights, what to look for,
right,
what to look out for.
Right.
But sometimes it's more important than what to look for.
Oh yeah.
So it's I'm having a blast with it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh yeah. Well, if folks haven't seen it, they need to go online to myrtlebeachherald.com. This is a nice plug for the Herald's website, because they can see some of the back copies. They can even go back to one of the early ones, What is Mud Puddle Real Estate, which I think you started rolling even before we did that column, because you've probably gotten a lot of questions about that, or that may have been right out of the gate. But Mud Puddle Real Estate, you've had different rules there. Rule number 1 for viewers who haven't been online is?
Americans, there's one thing Americans do not do as well as almost the entire world, and that's negotiate. Right. And most people, when they go to list their property, they're concerned about this big negotiation, and they want to price their property high so they can get haggled down. Americans don't haggle. We buy things on sale. We use coupons. Right. We go to Costco and Sam's. We don't haggle. Right. So what happens is, generally the property sits there. They get it. The person that's trying to sell their property, they get aggravated. Of course, the agent will tell them, you're just too high. Right. So finally, they'll grudgingly bring the price down a little bit, fuss at the agent. Right. Nothing will happen. They'll bring the price down, fuss harder at the agent. Price will come down a little bit more. And finally, all of a sudden, it's like somebody opens the floodgates, and here's all these people walking through. Yeah. And they start getting offers. Where if they'd have priced it right from the get-go, it would have long since been sold. Right. And of course, the inverse of that is, because a lot of people do that, the buyers, they come in, and I see it day after day, they'll come to me and say, I want to spend $150,000. Well, and a lot of times they've already gone on the web themselves, and when they do their little search, they type in $150,000. Right. Well, the person that priced their house at $160,000 but would take $150,000, and they price it $160,000, $165,000 so that they could be haggled down. Right. They never see it. The buyer never sees it because it doesn't come up on their list. And if they go to an agent and say, I don't want to look at anything over $150,000, the agent types in $150,000 MLS. Right. They never see it. Or if they priced it to begin with at $150,000, because in actuality at $165,000, if it's a $150,000 product, and they're competing with true $165,000s, right, they don't compete. So you've got to price it right. That's a very good point. I bet a lot of folks probably they must be they must be imagining that everyone's going to come negotiate with them. Where does that come from? Well, because in the movies, right, or everybody thinks they're Donald Trump. and Donald Trump, Art of the Deal, all this stuff about negotiations. In reality, what normally ends up happening is when they finally get down to what the market says the property's worth.
Right.
They get the buyers come, boom, and they do a deal. The whole, and that's an American thing. I mean, Americans go on vacation.
Right.
And they'll go to, somewhere down in the Caribbean. There's a street hawker, $4 for the trinket. Well, an American gets him down to $2 and thinks, hey, I showed him. That guy had taken 45 cents.
Right.
He's thinking he's fleecing Americans all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's one thing we've lost. I mean, even car dealers really, supposedly there's this big haggling. There's not a whole lot of haggling. Most of it's driven by financing.
Right, right. That's a great point. And you've gotten into that even on the real estate side, that a lot of things are driven by financing, how creatively someone can step out there and do some financing. Are there some good opportunities for folks?
People who are in trouble with distressed properties, creative financing, if you've got somebody who knows what they're doing, can really save the day.
Right.
The only caveat to that is anybody who's in a bad situation, first thing you do is you call your bank.
Right.
People want to
really?
crawl.
Yeah.
They want to crawl in a hole and they want to hide. First thing you do is you call the bank because you've got a mortgage contract, and that mortgage contract spells out what you're supposed to do and what the bank's going to do.
Right.
It also spells out if you don't do what you said you would do, namely make the payments.
Right.
It spells out what the bank's going to do, and the bank's going to do that unless you let them know what the situation is.
Yes.
Banks do not want houses. Houses are a liability. Mortgages are assets. So they want a performing mortgage. Most of the time, they can work something out. And if the house has to foreclose, at least the process is out in the open, and it's not this big green-headed demon that's going to tear you up. But and I kind of specialize a little bit in distressed properties because you work harder for less money, but it's very satisfying to help people through a real bad
that's
stretch.
got to be, because I've seen stories recently about the level of anxiety and stress caused by folks who are facing foreclosure or folks whose homes are in difficult. And I could imagine it easily as a small business owner and lots of folks in that position, just the pressure that's put on you from having things. And I'm sure lots of folks are faced with that. So I bet that is very gratifying.
And the thing about it is, normally once they contact the bank, now you have to get past the collector. The first person you can talk to is going to be a collector, and all he's going to say is, where is the check?
Right.
You need to get through to the workout department or loss mitigation department, and you may have to call 3 times. But those are the people that can make changes happen. If you're in an arm that is adjusted out of sight, sometimes they can just refinance you into a fixed rate and fix it. Right. If you lose a job and you fall 3-4 months behind, well, if you get a new job and suddenly your income's restored, the bank, and it varies from bank to bank, situation to situation, the bank can take those 4 payments and put them on the end or make it a balloon at the end.
Right.
Either way, you get back on track. But they can't do that if you don't call.
That's a great point.
And the thing about it is, if you're scared to death of the bank or whatever, a realtor that specializes, I do it all the time. I've got a form for it. They give me what's called a letter of authorization, and I make the phone call. I work and I negotiate it.
That's tremendous.
I mean, and a lot of times, as a realtor, I would like to get paid, but some of the best times you don't get paid because you work it out. But talk about great advertising.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's great advertising for the bank, too.
That is. Even though a lot of bankers don't want to promote the fact that we're going to, because ultimately, as you said, the collector's got to be saying, where's the check, where's the money? But at the same time, the fact that they are willing and capable of working it out is critical.
But they can't unless you make the phone call.
Right.
Or get somebody else to make the phone call. That's the great thing. You don't even have to make the phone call yourself. Just get somebody that knows what they're doing. And then, like I said, there are people out there who do it for free.
Right. Eddie, you've done about 15 or 20. Do you see another 40, 50? Are they in your mind? You've already begun laying a bunch of them out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, realtors are helping me come up with ideas.
Good.
And people on the street,
Great.
Ask questions. And whenever I'm working with a client, early on, they hear it until they can recite it back to me. my mantra is the only bad question is when you don't ask.
Right.
And because an educated consumer is less likely to get in trouble and less likely to have hiccups come up at the last second, which can kill a deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eddie, thanks so much for being with us this morning. I'm sorry we've run out of time. Keep up the great work with Mud Puddle Real Estate.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Myrtle Beach Herald columnist Eddie Paul coming up next. How often do we have a guest on the show who loves being called an idiot? Who loves being called an idiot? This was an example. Eddie loved being called an idiot. I was thrilled he was called an idiot because he had covered a muddy topic positively, and one of the folks who felt that they were being targeted was not happy and they went after him. Well, he's not targeting anybody. He's targeting subjects. He's targeting muddy topics, and he's targeting them well. Take the time to learn more about Mud Puddle Real Estate. Go online at myrtlebeachherald.com. He's going to be covering scams. He's going to be covering negotiating. He's going to be covering creative financing. He's already been covering much of this. There's a lot more out there. Distressed properties and a great take on it. Inspector Homes Part 3 is in newsstands until today. There'll be a new one in newsstands tomorrow. Get out there and pick up a printed copy of the Myrtle Beach Herald, or go online to myrtlebeachherald.com and see our muddy waters of the Mud Puddle Real Estate and its author, Eddie Paul. Thanks again, Eddie, for coming in this morning. Absolutely.